Hello, students. Welcome to the end of week one. Congratulations on making it through the week. I know you had a lot of readings. Again, I have to fit 16 weeks or 14 weeks of curriculum into just 6, and so it makes it a really fast class, but then you'll be done with 3 credits in college really quickly if you work hard. And so thank you for your time and attention to week one. I hope you really did enjoy the readings and diving into what is cultural anthropology. I really enjoyed reading your introductions, so thank you so much for sharing those, and hopefully I've already gotten back to you on those. Also, I have so enjoyed and will enjoy reading your different key concepts and your discussion questions, and then of course your very thoughtful, engaging questions on the student forum. So thank you. Now, you're probably wondering, what are these wrap-up videos for? Well, in college, you have a lot of readings and you have a lot of terms and you have a lot of things, and you're like, well, what do I need to focus on, right? What is the most important thing, the main takeaways that I need to focus on? Well, first of all, I would say please focus on those PowerPoints that were put together for you, right? Because those have the main concepts that I want you to draw from for your exams and just for life, right? As you're seeing, a lot of this stuff can just be very applicable to life because we all interact with humans every single day. That's what anthropology is, right? And so please follow those PowerPoints. But the other thing that I do in these videos is I run through and I teach, and I wish I were in a teaching setting in an in-person classroom. We're online, but that's okay too, right? But what I do is I go through the key concepts from your, and I'm pulling it up right now, the key concepts exam guide, okay? So in these videos, what you can expect from me is to go through what you have done for that week and to kind of highlight what is the most important thing which to focus on from the prior week, okay? So I hope that this is really helpful. I would really encourage you to watch these videos till the very end, okay? Because it's really going to help you prepare for your exams and just be able to write and be able to think like an anthropologist, okay? So first, terms and ideas. Anthropology. I'm excited to see what you think about anthropology, but anthro, okay, means human, okay, anthro, human, and last is pology, which means study of. So anthropology is literally the study of humans, okay? A holistic approach. I hope you found this with anthropology. What that means is that bottom-up approach. Also that kind of holistic view of humans as they exist. You can't just say, you can't just say one little aspect of humanity. Let me provide you an example. I can't just say that Bob in our class, say, and sorry if there is a Bob in the class, I don't mean to just, call you out, but Bob, with holism, I can't just say Bob is a college student. All that Bob does is be a college student, and that's all that Bob is going to do. No. Well, Bob is a college student. Bob is working full-time. Bob has 2 children. Bob has a spouse. Bob has this going on. Bob is taking care of parents. Does that make sense? There's a holistic being of a human. And so how in anthropology can you not study the holistic being in that perspective? So what that means is that I can't, as an anthropologist, step into a study and not try and think of every single touch point that may impact that particular study. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's what that holistic approach is, okay? Cultural relativism, I hope you live by this. This may be a new term for you, but this is going to pop up again and again for you, okay? This is not thinking of other cultures as judging them, as saying, I'm better than you, I do this the right way, y'all are idiots, right? Like, so much happens like that, and being culturally relative is thinking, kind of maybe taking a step back and saying, that's interesting, that's a way of doing that, and not having any kind of, level of bad or good judgment with it. It just is what it is. Gosh, we need to be living like that, right? Because it's something is not necessarily good or bad, or assigning judgment to something is not a culturally relativistic approach, okay? And as anthropologists, when we study humans, if we walked into a situation and we said, oh, that's bad how they're doing that, that's not a scientific study. Again, a scientific study looks at the holistic factors that may influence something, and we're not going to assign negative or positive values on any of that. We're just going to report what is. That's why this is scientific, okay? That's why we have to be cultural relativists. Now, inductive and deductive, okay? These were terms that were directly from your chapter. And all of these terms were, of course, but if we go back to your chapters, and actually, I'm just going to keep on rocking and rolling with the study guide. But when you look at your chapters, all of these terms are in here, okay? And so inductive is going to be kind of your more anthropological approach to studying things. This is walking into a scientific setting, okay, with humans doing something. Say that they're, for example, for me, for my doctoral research, I studied water policy in the state of Georgia here. I walked into that not having any preconceived notions as to how water policy was created, who created water policy, who actually had the power in creating water policy. I just came into the situation with an open mind, a cultural relativist mindset, to then have that frame my scientific research, okay? So that's your inductive approach. It's not saying you have a hypothesis or something already built, okay, that's influencing your study. It's walking into a situation with, your methods of how you study, which we're going to get to, and I'm going to describe those to you. You have your methodology for how you study a scientific study setting, okay, but it's a very inductive. You're in the atmosphere. You're taking it all in, okay. That's how I think about it. Instead of applying theory or applying scientific notions to a setting, okay? Now that's the opposite of deductive, okay? And in an anthropology, we tend not to have as much of a deductive. Some do, which is totally fine too. But the deductive approach is saying, okay, I'm going to apply this hypothesis to this certain setting, and I'm going to prove whether or not that's true, okay? And that is a good type of study as well. However, that's not typically what cultural anthropologists do. When we walk into a setting, we want to be absorbed by that cultural setting and then kind of take it all into, then be influenced, and then to see what the scientific setting is, okay? Ethnocentrism, y'all already know this. It is the opposite of cultural relativism. This is being judgy. Okay, this is saying my culture is better than your culture because I do this, I'm better because of this. It's very ethnocentric. It's a very, outdated, ridiculous notion, right? That anybody is better than anybody else, or any culture is better or more cultured. Like, that doesn't even exist, right? That term shouldn't even be around because we're all cultured. Doesn't matter where we're coming from or what we're doing. Everybody has their own culture, right? And so anyways, the ethnocentric is judging. Oh, but I have cultural relativism on here twice. Yeah, you should probably know cultural relativism. Culture, how do we define culture? Okay, that is in your textbook. And this will be something that is definitely you want to look into, same as cultural relativism. It is what we do. It is how we do it. It is why we do it. It is all the different things that make up why we do what we do, okay? And quite honestly, it's very hard to pin down culture because it's everything that we do every day, which I know is really tough and really an abstract notion, but also at the same time, it is the most important. I think that anthropology is the most important study because it is all about humans and why we do what we do, and that's culture, okay? Ethnography. Ethnography is one of those methods that we come into a scientific study and we use. Ethnography is writing a culture, okay, in a very holistic sense. It is you going to a field setting, like me living in Athens, Georgia, and in Georgia for 6 years, being all encompassed in that environment, and then writing and studying through specific anthropological methods of scientific research what's going on with a particular thing. And like for me, that was water policy. So then I wrote an ethnography, which is like a book on the different, and you can look it up. I published some on this as well, but it's all about, why a culture does something and applying those cultural settings, okay? So it's literally writing culture and writing about what they do. Emic, edic. Again, a lot of these terms are going to be kind of opposites of each other. Emic is inside, that insider perspective, okay? That kind of like inductive perspective of going and being with, okay? Anthropologists like the emic, cultural anthropologists, because you're then not sitting back like an armchair anthropologist from an outsider perspective, an etic, ETIC, that's sitting on your veranda, kind of judging out, looking out the window, and being ethnocentric, more of an outsider perspective, okay? Emic is more of that insider, getting to know that culture that you're working with, okay? Key informants, y'all could have probably defined this before. When you're developing a study in anthropology, you have to think about who your key informants are going to be, and then you have to target talking to those key informants. So for me, it was water policy in Georgia. Who do you think I wanted to talk to actually see who created policy? Okay, first one that comes to mind for me, governor, senators, water policy commissions, boards, water scientists. Looking up memos, seeing who is writing the memos, who's writing the policies, which senators are writing those policies. Those are going to be your key informants that you target first for a particular scientific study with humans in anthropology. Then you're going to ask in those interviews, who else might I interview and talk to get a more holistic concept and sense of this study? Okay. Qualitative, quantitative. I specialize in qualitative research. Okay. This is not your numbers. This is your language. When I go and I talk to key informants as an anthropologist, I take a recorder with me and I record every single little thing that they say. Okay. Every single word that they say is then a piece of data for me, a data point. Okay. Then, as a qualitative scientist, I take all of that language back to my computer. It is transcribed word for word. Okay. Then I use a specific coding mechanism called Atlas TI. You don't need to know that. But I code the language just as if you were coding math, right? Or solving a math problem or doing statistics. I look at language and what people say across hundreds of informants, sometimes even thousands through surveys. What are they saying? And those words are the data. I hope that makes sense, right? So it's a very qualitative approach toward research, is looking at language, looking at what people say, okay? Quantitative is looking at numbers. If you've ever taken a survey, which all of you have, okay? Remember your Likert scales, like in course evaluations? How well does this professor, provide an inclusive environment? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's quantitative. Then you're comparing those numbers across, hundreds or thousands of different entities, okay? But on surveys, you also have open-ended questions. Remember, getting back to the language, and that's where I would use the qualitative research, language and coding to take those themes that people are talking about from. So I hope that makes sense. Unstructured interviews are things like I would show up at an informant's house and I would just let them lead the interview. Let them come with the questions. I wouldn't come with a piece of paper ready to ask any questions, right? It is just a time for me to sit with you, to get to know you, very, very unstructured. Semi-structured, on the other hand, is where I come with a set of questions, okay? And I ask that of the individual, and we go through those in depth, okay? A questionnaire is more like a survey, okay? You've all taken a questionnaire, you've all done survey, maybe even survey development, or you will in your field of study. You have Likert scale questions, so you have quantitative, you have qualitative questions, you're more open-ended. It's just that's what anthropologists can use sometimes as well, are questionnaires, okay? Next thing, a big one for cultural anthropologists, participant observation. This is when I go to a culture, I go to a setting, okay? I have a very emic, kind of inductive approach, and I'm analyzing it from that spot, from participant observation, okay? So for example, I studied, again, water policy in Georgia for my dissertation as a cultural anthropologist. Where would I go find water, like how water policy is made and do participant observation? Well, I'd sit in on legislative hearings. I'd sit in on water boards. I'd sit in on them actually doing the work. I'd look at who is speaking, who is drafting the briefs, that because that's how the water policy is made. Does that make sense? But you have to be in that environment, just like your textbook talks about. Bronislaw Malinowski, Franz Boas. They Margaret Mead. They went to that environment, lived in that environment, and observed. And I'm not talking for like a weekend, right? I'm talking for a very long time. Okay, so a lot of my anthropologist friends, they do like half time in Malawi, all over the world, right? I'm a domestic anthropologist, but a lot of anthropologists are international anthropologists. Okay, so then informed consent, you have to get, because we're working with humans, you can't just, record humans and then use what they say and then go on, because we're protected in entities. Okay, we're protected by the institutional review boards, and that's very important because back in the day, humans were protected, and doctors were giving humans, kid you not, things like syphilis and doing all sorts of terrible things to humans without their consent. Okay, and so now as scientists, we have to have informed consent for folks to participate in any type of research. Okay, so if I do research right now at the National Science Foundation, and I just do focus groups virtually. Before I even ask a question, I have to get them to say yes to the research study and then to being a part of that research study. That's informed consent, okay? Longitudinal study talked about that. You got to be there for a long time. You can't go for a weekend and expect to know everything about a scientific setting or a culture. You got to be there, okay? Enculturation. This is again in your textbook, okay? Really important. This is getting used to other cultures. This is being enculturated. You may, from the moment you are born, right? You're being enculturated in everything that is going on around you. I have one of your writing assignments be a particular event or place that you really connect with. And so I'm really excited to learn how you were enculturated, because each one of us in this classroom, we come from different backgrounds. So all of us have this amazing enculturation, okay? And that's just learning culture as we go. Acculturation, this one is more like assimilation based. This is more like a dominant culture coming in and imposing their culture on you, right? Not necessarily sometimes in the best way. So that's the difference between acculturation and enculturation. Okay, so a lot of these I've already described. What is a study of anthropology? Went through that. Why is it a holistic study? Okay. Miner's article, someone needs to write a more updated article, but I hope that you gathered NASA RAMA is our Americans in the 1950s. So see how they described all of that stuff they're doing, like brushing their teeth and going to the dentist? Isn't that wild? Go back through and read some of that. But it's actually Americans. Okay, and if we were to pick apart all of the interesting and cultural things we do every single day, like Miner did, she writes this amazing kind of concept of American culture. I really want to write one now because of like screen time and all that. So if anybody's interested in providing different tidbits on that, that would be awesome. Again, what is culture? Went through that, really know this. Really know the four fields of anthropology. Okay, you have linguistic anthropology, study of language. You have archaeology, the study of ancient kind of dead humans, right? Not dinosaurs, anything like that. Everything has to be human based. Biological anthropology is a study of more like bones and forensic science. Okay, instead of piecing together entire cultures and how they live, they're looking specifically at the forensic and bones associated with dead cultures, okay, and living cultures. And then cultural anthropology, okay, cultural anthropology, study of living individuals. And then applied anthropology, of course, okay, you're actually going to be writing about this in your first writing assignment. But applied anthropology is taking it to the next level. How can we apply anthropological concepts like, say, cultural relativism to what we're doing every single day? Okay, and those anthropological methods that we use to study, like participant observation, how can we actually apply those? Okay. We went through the main methods up above in the terms. We went through ethnography. We went through the different ethnographic fieldwork techniques. Again, all of those ethnographic fieldwork techniques are your questionnaires, participant observation, unstructured interviews, semi-structured interviews, finding your key informants, okay? And then let's see what else you have here. And then enculturation, and acculturation. You'll definitely have to be able to answer that question for your exam coming up. So the next week, we're going to focus on more of these other topics. And so with that, I hope that you kind of have your main takeaways from this first week. I hope you understand the different concepts that I just went through. I would really focus on these, go back to those PowerPoints, go back to how your chapters talked about these specific points, and you'll do great on your upcoming exam. So without any further ado, please email me with any questions whatsoever. Really happy to talk through that with you. Again, my email is dryan@lccc.wy.edu. Also, happy to Zoom anytime you would like to talk more about cultural anthropology and all the wonderful concepts that we have as anthropologists. So congrats on making it through week 1. You're doing great. We'll move on to week 2.